I'm gonna be real honest with you guys. I'm not usually a fan of updating deck profiles when they're not really such a big update. But when I saw this, I just had to. Hey, what's going on, guys? I'm Mrs. here. Well, I know that my Beatrice deck profile, when I said it may be one of the last few, or even the last possible V deck profile. But then I was scrolling through some of my comments and I found that one posted literally a few days ago. And I was like, hey, I should probably address it. Especially because I myself, in terms of my personal deck building, have recently rebuilt the deck again. Now, I know the comment says VBT12, but I decided to cheat this a bit further. I decided to include Clan Select, which is that entire reprint plus 3 new cards a set. Now, this is going to be a relatively more budget-friendly approach in the sense that you won't see stuff like Spectral Duke. Technically is a bit pricey, but it's not that bad. I will still buy it actually, but it's kind of bad at the same time, so I won't. And at the same time, there's also Percival as well as Aglovale. Aglovale is still going for extremely sky-high prices here in the Japanese format, which is probably why I will never build the Bluish Flame Liberators unless I get a huge free paycheck. If not, it's just out of the question. I'm not doing it. But beyond that, we are actually bringing this deck back to its roots. The previous incarnation of Pellinore, which I covered I think last year for VEB10, was very much different from the deck profile I did for Pellinore back in VBT03. But now we're actually redoing the VBT03 deck with cards that have been reprinted. And when I mean reprinted, I'm referring to Kaiden and Hoel. And so you may be watching and be like, hey, what the hell, I came to see a new deck profile and just showing me old cards. Yeah, but let's get this clear. Kaiden and Hoel have seen massive drops in prices since their original high price at just triple rares back in VBT05. But now that they've been reprinted to almost extremely bottom level prices, I felt it was a very good time to actually build the deck and cover it. Especially because Kaiden and Hoel actually really uncannily support both Garmore and Pellinore together. It's just shocking how good the synergy is, all four of them together. And I was like, this is a deck profile I have to cover, whether it's, post-Clan Select, post-Gurgit or not. This is something I need to show on this channel, especially considering that it's actually not too expensive. You could actually build this yourself, but I mean, why would you spend on a budget deck in V? But let's say you want to spend on a budget deck in V. This is the prime target to go to. So let's cover it in a bit. So, as you could probably guess, we obviously play 4 copies of the White Hair and the Moon Shadow, Pellinore. We also use 4 copies of the Great Silver Wolf Garmore, and as just a fun little addition, 1 Longo. So let's cover these ratios again. Now, long-running fans of this channel will know that I've been playing Pellinore for a super long period of time, and I've covered literally so many versions of Pellinore as a deck. So I will not really go into depth on what Pellinore is and how it works, but generally it's just really good as a pressure tool. I mean, first of all, as long as any rearguard's attack hits a Vanguard, CB1, SB3, slam, free superior symbols there. The second skill is more of utility. You CB1 after unit attacks from the rearguard, you bounce it back. So it kind of solves a bunch of problems at the same time, where you get to resolve the fact that, if you have troubles getting pieces back in your hand, especially for the unplaced pieces, you may want to keep them back. And of course, the main part is of course the high pressure. Now for Garmore. Garmore is essentially the setup card. And what do I mean by setup? Garmore sets up really well in the terms that when he is on place, you CB1, you open the top 3, you call 1, you put it to the bottom, then you pass 3k to up to 6 units on the board. Now, I know this sounds really junky and people will be like, hey, wait a minute, Garmore's like really trash. I mean, you just give 6 units plus 3 and that's only after you call 1, but like, does that mean I have to fill up my board on turn 2 and then turn 3 at plus 3? But then what if the board dies from turn 2 to turn 3? Transitioning turns is pretty hard. Well, yes, but there are 2 ways to address this problem, and I'll address one of them through Garmore's second skill. His second skill is when you have 1 or less cards in hand, none of your rearguards can be attacked, and none of your rearguards can be retired. I want to clarify, it cannot be retired and cannot be attacked. They can still be bound, they can still be locked. It's not resist. For anyone who goes out saying, oh, Garmore is a good counter for Narukami, I'm sorry, it only works against Vermilion. Gauntlet, Vanquisher, it's still perfectly fine. You will still die. But no, That's one way you can counter it, but as you probably would think, it's not very reliable. I mean, you have to drop your hand size down to 1, which is worse than brave. It's like so bad. So why would you do that? Well, there's another way to ensure that you can plus very heavily off this plus 3k, and we'll be covering it later in the video. But now for our last card, we actually play one Longo. Longo is just a 24k beat stick. It's as simple as it can be. It's pretty fun. You just can't ride it. So, I mean, yeah, it's a giant beat stick. I'm not sure how to explain a giant beat stick. Large number good? Haha, I don't know. Moving on to our grade 2 lineup, we've got for hardworking knight, Eleanor, our new friend, Kaiden, and as well as for hardworking knight, all-out knight, Attels. So, Attels, I'm not really sure how to pronounce it. You guys in comments can try and fight. I don't know. Let's break it down, shall we? So, Eleanor. Eleanor's a double red from VBD 10. She's one of the few cards who actually moved out from that Pellinore deck profile I did back then and put it here. This is because she has insane synergy with Pellinore, as well as Garmore. Yeah. So as long as you have called 2 cards this turn when she attacks, she gains plus 5k. And if you've called 4 more, she gains an extra 10k power. And then at the end of the battle, she attacks, you put in the soul. So as you can tell, if you call 4 more units, which is actually really easy in this deck, you just get a free plus 15 on this 9k, and you put on XL2, boom, instant 20k guard. You have to address that with Garmore, plus another 3k. It just gets worse and worse. And the thing is, at the end of the battle that is attacks, you just put it to the soul. So this helps you as well, because Pellinore Soul Blast 3, as I stated way back in VBTO 3, is just really expensive. But as we've seen later on throughout the years, we are actually getting increased ways to save that soul, and as I said in the Pellinore Turbo deck profile back in VEB 10, this is one of the most critical ways to do it. You use this card, beat big stick, put in the soul, done. If this attack hits, you resolve this skill first, put in the soul, then you count plus 1, you soul blast 2, plus this card, wham, superior right, the White and the Moon Shadow, Pellinore. It's as simple as that. It's so, I won't say it's brain dead, because you do need to plan attack strategies as well as your number ratios, but I think beyond that, it's not that hard. We're not doing Dark Irregulars here. It's no major brain in usage. It's just basic math. So if you can't do basic math, don't play Go Paladin. Anyone can play Gurgit, by the way. So next up, we play 4 copies of Kaiden. Kaiden is actually relatively versatile, and here's why. When he's placed, when he's placed, it doesn't matter from hand or from deck. Keep that in mind. You counterblast 1, you discard a card. Pretty heavy. You look in the top 3 cards of your deck, you call 1. And if Hoel, which is his brother, if Hoel's on the rearguard circle, you draw. So if Hoel's on the board, you refund the discard with a draw. So it's effectively just changing it to counterblast 1. But you don't have Hoel, then it just becomes, counterblast 1, discard 1, which is pretty heavy, but you are paying this cost for its versatility. And what do I mean by its versatility? Like I said, it's from hand or from deck, which is just insane when you see later on what I'm talking about. You have ways to call from hand, you have ways to call from deck. So generally, no matter how you want to put it, this card is just really good, and it can combo off itself. Because it's a when placed, you could effectively do a Kaiden into a Kaiden into a Kaiden into a Kaiden if you can spend the resource, which is just mind-blowing. And this is just a fragment of the ways we build boards. The second way on how you preserve a board with Garmore is, first of all, the pseudo-brave one. Secondly, is to build the board as soon as Garmore's placed. You use Garmore, you CB1, you combo into Kaiden, you use Kaiden, you open up, you call another card, and you can just keep going and going and going and going and going until you get 6 units or a board that's comfortable with you or a board that you can play with. Then you slam the plus 3. Remember, the plus 3 effect is only resolves at the end of the summon step. But if you think about it, if Garmore is summoning an on-place unit, you can resolve the on-place unit first, then resolve the plus 3 at the end of this entire chain. So really, skill timing has never been stronger in any deck than this deck you're about to see right here. It's like Yu-Gi-Oh levels of chaining, but it's not so harsh in the sense that you don't see some prim wacky combo. It's just really simple board building, which you have to take into account where the units are placed, you have to take into account what you're doing and the resources you have open, and generally you won't fail. Now, our next card and our last card for the grade 2 lineup is All Out Knight Attels. Attels is really special in the sense that it's similar to Kaiden. It's not so flexible, but it's a lot better. When placed on Vanguard or on Rearguard, Kaiden was only a Rearguard only skill. I don't know if you noticed that. But Athels is actually Vanguard or Rearguard. So when you can place him Vanguard or Rearguard, you just discard a card from, it must be summoned from hand, okay? You discard one card, you open the top tree, you call a unit, you shuffle the deck. So not only is this a prime time right target, it also just helps to extend the board. And you may be like, hey, wait a minute, I'm missing something. If you are calling this from hand, you can't combo this with Garmore, you can't trigger off. Yes and no, because as you see in our grade 1 lineup, there is an interaction with one of the cards with Athels to make it work during the right phase. And we're going to show you right now. For our grade 1 lineup, we have, of course, as I mentioned just now, we play 4 Howell. We also play 4 on Go Paladins, instant number 1 Lolly Bunny staple, which is Dindrain. And then we also play this guy whose name I sincerely forgot despite him serving me so well. Anyone in the comment section below, please help me, I'm too lazy to wiki it. This king. So let's get started into our grade 1 lineup. Howell. Howell's price is really low, he's really good, and he combos with both Garmore and Pellinore. Let's see why. Your unit that was placed this turn gains 5,000 power. Your unit in this column, sorry. That means, for example, if Howell was here, alright, and then you just place like literally anything else. Let's say you place this turn, Athels. This gives this 5k power. Oh, I don't know why my thumb just showed up. 5k power, which is, it's not that bad, right? But then there's a second clause. If you have Kaiden, which is his brother, on the rearguard circle, that unit that you call gains 10k power instead of 5k power. Which, I mean, it's not bad. It really helps hit high numbers. You just give a unit plus free 10. It effectively becomes an 18k booster. Who doesn't want a free 18k booster? But I think it gets even worse than that. You see, you can go above and beyond and combo it with my best buddy, the White-Haired Moonshadow, Pellinore. Pellinore is, as you probably know by now, a battle phase superior, right? And it gets worse because it says your unit that was placed this turn in this column. That means if you keep, Howell behind the Vanguard and you just slap down Pellinore doing superior, right? He gains plus 10 or plus 5. So it becomes a 17 or 22k re-attacker. Howell is one of the biggest, and I mean this, biggest ways to solve Pellinore's number 1 problem in V series. And that was that, he's not threatening when you superior ride. It's just a 12k. XL2 solved the problem of, he's just superior riding and then he just minuses 1 drive, so it doesn't really help. XL2 made up for it. If you superior ride, you draw, they get 1 drive, so it's effectively, you still made up for that loss ratio. But he was still not that threatening. But now in V, you now have Howell who can give Pellinore 5 or potentially 10k for a reswing, which just helps a lot considering that we play a lot of fronts in this deck and Pellinore actually can't benefit from these fronts because, when you pull the front trigger, he's not there. Then you slap on top. The Vanguard loses the front trigger, Pellinore's back to 12. But not anymore. Pellinore can now go up to 17 or potentially 22k with Howell. And I know these are all old interactions, but these are interactions that resurface, especially because of clan select and the cheapness of some of these staples. So I'm sorry that it's not exactly a whole new brand new deck, but it is something I just need to cover. Of course, Dindrain. Dindrain's another card you can cover for really cheap. I want to give a shout out to Nami. Nami actually bought me for Dindrain the day before Girl gets released, which is why I happen to have 4 copies at really cheap. I know Clan Select also lowered the price of Dindrain, but I managed to get these at really bomb level prices, even below the current Clan Select prices. So tops to him. The skill is when placed by a card effect. Just by card effect, okay? You soul plus 1 to do one of 2 actions. You can either draw a card, or you can countercharge and plus 3. So Dindrain covers 2 aspects in the sense that if you want to draw, you want to extend, sure, you can just draw. Or if you want to countercharge, go ahead, and this unit gains 3k. So it's really good. Dindrain's really flexible, but the only problem is if you're not actually calling her by card effect, she's effectively dead weight loss. So if you have her in hand, if you start in hand, just use her to ride because she's legit useless otherwise. Use her as a guard, use her as a discard. Just use her as fodder as long as she's not a target for a superior summon. Just get rid of her because she's actually just really bad. But when you call her from the effect, she's actually really good. So that's just something I have to say. Last up is this guy, this king. This king really binds together both Garmore and Pellinore. And it's surprising that he's just a rare. I've shown this card multiple times before in the VB303 deck profile, as well as later on the VEB10 deck profile with Pellinore. And you notice that he's still here. Even when I move on to most likely, a Pellinore premium deck profile, if I personally ever go into premium, I'm definitely bringing this guy along because he's just so good. The skill is very simple. When your grade 3 or greater Vanguard is placed, so it counts for rank, it counts for strike, you put it in your soul, you draw one, and you call one from hand. It's super simple. And you may be like, oh, alright, it's just a filter. You put it in soul, you draw and call. So you improve a potential rearguard circle, you plus one soul. Okay, so what? Here's so what. Step 1. If you happen to have this on the board with Garmore, you could potentially, when Garmore's placed, you put him in the soul, and then you can draw one and call one card from hand. Oops, it missed. The card will be Athel's. Athel's can only activate when he's called from hand, which this guy perfectly finishes because he has to call a card from hand by a card's effect, which this guy counts. So you could effectively just snuggle in that call summon during the ride phase. So if Garmore's on the board, you suck in the soul, you call one Athel's skill, you call another guy, I don't know, maybe if you're lucky a Longo or something, and boom, you converted one rearguard into 2. Or if you can make this even more drastic, don't even call Longo. Call someone like Kaiden. Use Kaiden's skill, combo off into literally something else, an Eleanor or something. And look at that. From one card, you now have a +3 on your board, which is insane. No matter how I put it, it's just, that's how it works. If you're playing this deck, it's like playing, some form of solitaire or some form. You just stack your board, just build it, and then just run. There is no specific pieces that you actually need for this deck. You just keep running. And I think that's one of the reasons why later on, you actually will not want to play Percival in a deck with Pellinore or in such a beatdown approach. Pellinore only triggers whenever Rearguard deck hits. But what Percival does is open Excel Circle and call a very strong target, but it's just capped at one target. Garmore just pours everyone out of the board and just starts running like madmen, and then after that, if just one of them hits, wham, you just drop Pellinore down from the sky. So really, it's not just because of budget, I think it's also just strictly because of the fact there's just so much good synergy in this deck. There's really no reason to play something like Percival. At least in my opinion, that's how I found the justification that, in all sincerity, there is not much synergy between the two. Can they be played together? Absolutely. Should they be played together? Build it yourself. And so now we move on into the triggers. As I probably hinted just now, because we're building a board full of madmen, we're going to need 8 fronts. Just 8 fronts, It's really good, it's really effective because you're building a board and you want your board to be good, big, and fat. Here, use 8 fronts. We also play for heal because this is card fight Vanguard. We play for draw PG, Mark, because he's the OG king, and also because you need draw and you want PGs. Like I mentioned before, PGs are really good. Boom. Spring Breeze Messenger because you're playing Pellinore. Represent correctly, play the right starter. You want to use Intimidation, use Hoel, use Criff. But you want to be an OG king, this is your starter. No question. And that actually strangely covers it up really quickly for my Pellinore Garmore deck profile, or just Pellinore Turbo. In the past, I used to say, Pellinore Garmore is more like a fusion deck that you play for fun. But especially, and really, I just have to keep stressing this, especially with the birth of Kaiden and Hoel into very cheap and affordable staples, I just cannot emphasize on how much the synergy between these cards mesh together. The fact that you can have 2 cards that literally bind 2 different playstyles together is insane. Pellinore, ever since its reveal all the way back in 2018, has always hinted that you want many rearguard attacks, want to trigger and call. The problem was, Garmore was never competent enough to do it, and as we move later on, Kaiden and Hoel seemed to work, but they were just really, really so expensive that you come to the point of, why would I even want to play this deck? Now it's not only cheap and affordable, it's still viable. I would go on to say that beyond Spectral Duke Percival, or even if you're waiting for Prominence Glare, this is one of the prime time candidates For Go Paladin, I mean, yeah, we have stuff like, oh, I can play Gurkid Ezel, or oh, I can play, Spectral Duke, I can play Prominence Glare. First of all, Prominence Glare, not everyone's going to play it, it's a PR. Secondly, we're at a point where Gurkid's main XL generation is not that strong, so you only have one XL, so it's generally a lot more easier to deal with. And third, like I said, this is a completely rogue deck. No one is going to expect this whole horde of madmen being put on the board and swing. But of course, there are weaknesses for this deck. It's quite clear. First of all, it's Peace Reliant. Second of all, it can be CBD Knight. Third of all, it's Go Paladin. You sack the board, you bind the board, they're not coming back. We lost the game because the whole game lies on the board. It's like playing zero. But like I said, this is by far one of the most fun decks that I've actually rebuilt in recent memory, and I'll go on to say that I'm gonna miss V because of decks like this. I think stuff like this is really fun. I would try and find a way to personally bring this into premium for myself, but for you guys who actually want to learn how to play Garmore Pellinore, I hope this video has been really helpful. And like I said, Kind Hoel is just super cheap. I just can't go on talking about it. Just go and buy it if you are actually interested in playing Go Paladin. And their arts, 1, 2, 3, are all done by Daisuke, the king who did Draconic Descent. There should be more enough reason for you to start considering buying this deck. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you all next time. Goodbye.